The only time you should ever feel uncomfortable asking for money is if the value you're providing does not equal the dollar amount you're receiving. If that's the case, then you should feel uncomfortable with asking for the money, and you should feel uncomfortable with selling because you're doing a disservice to the people that you're trying to work with, right? As long as the value proposition is in favor of the buyer, you should always feel very confident and comfortable selling because it's okay. It's an exchange of value.
Welcome to the Rebel Energy Podcast with me, your host, Jade Ellsbury. I'm a corporate dropout and multiple six-figure online business owner. My mission is to help you get out of the 9-to-5 mindset and create a new narrative for moms working from home to gain more freedom, more income, and living your dream life by cultivating your own rebel energy. So grab a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's dig in. Hey everyone, I'm here today with Justin Thomas. I'm going to call him a sales expert. What do you like to go by, JT?
Yeah, I just usually go by sales consultant.
Perfect. Okay, we're going to call you the expert. But
I
JT,
like it better.
yes, I like it. So tell us a little bit. I know you've got an amazing background of knowledge in sales, and I know a lot of our listeners, this is probably going to be the first podcast episode they want to listen to of the season, because a lot of entrepreneurs, right, are scared of sales. So tell us a little bit about your background and like how you got into it.
Yeah, so growing up, it came from growing up, right? I remember it actually stuck with me. I remember in high school, I think it was my junior year of high school, I had a teacher tell me I had a pretty face and a slick mouthpiece, and it was going to get me in trouble one day. And it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and I was like, huh. And then I remember I got into sales, and it just clicked for me, right? It just some people are like naturally inclined for it. Other people have to learn it. Nonetheless, you have to sharpen your skills, right? But I had a natural inclination for it. And I remember when I first figured it out, the first thing I did was email that teacher. And and I told her that it didn't get me in trouble. It actually worked out very well for me and enabled my career. Just because I realized I had a natural gift to relate to people. And I always that's just kind of what I made it about. Was I always just made it about other people, right? I didn't make it about myself or the money that I wanted to make or anything like that. Um, I knew I never wanted to be like in a salary job or hourly, right? I always liked the idea of being able to make as much money as I wanted. And that's why I got into sales was um, I started off in gym sales and it just steamrolled from there, right? I turned the gym around. One of my members was a manager for an auto group. It was
Mhm.
like, hey, you did really good here. Why don't you come work with me and make some real money? But all right, sure. Went and worked for him. Long story short, ended up selling like 30, 40, 50 trucks to this guy. Turned out that he owned a roofing company. And he was like, hey, you're really good at this. Why don't you come make real money with me? So I was like, all right, do this. And then I got into storm chasing and all that kind of stuff, doing the insurance side of things. And that's when things exploded for me. And I found I kind of found my home in the roofing industry and, grew and scaled businesses throughout that, whether it was for myself or for other people. But it came down to that same thing was just that I always made it about other people. And then I had a natural gift for teaching people how to do this the right way.
Mhm.
Everybody tries to overcomplicate things, I think, is the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and they make it to where it's this ever evasive skill. Um, for some reason, I don't know how I managed to do so. I developed the ability to make information consumable for most people.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was something that worked out very well. With training individuals, I saw a lot of success with the people underneath of me, and it came down to like my teaching, coaching, training style, where it wasn't just ramming information down people's throats. I posed information in a way that made people actually able to understand and implement, and saw a tremendous amount of success. That's kind of what led me in the path of wanting to work with more and more people, teaching them how to really quote unquote master the art of selling.
I love that. We're going to go back to I know that's not even about this podcast. I want to talk with you later about the sperm chasing part. I'm
Yeah.
I'm picturing like Twister or something. But no, I know even from, what you've been able to do and help me with in my business has been amazing. And 100% people overcomplicate. And I was one of those people as a new virtual assistant. And once I hired my VA coach, I'm like, oh, it really is that simple. And so my clients, they come to me, they're like, I don't need a portfolio. I don't need a welcome packet. And keeping it stupid simple, right? Just like the basics is always going to be the best way. I guess can I answer that question as well too? I was going to say, why do you enjoy it? But one thing I hear all the time from new online service providers is that they're afraid to sell, or they say, well, I'm not a salesman, or I can't be a coach, or I can't be a virtual assistant because I can't sell. Why do you think that is? Where does that come from?
I believe it comes from a lot with how we're raised. We're raised to not talk about money. Talking about money is tacky. So it just puts this stigma with selling where ultimately you have to ask somebody for money, and it makes people uncomfortable because we're raised that's taboo. You don't talk about money.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very limited mindset that is taught in people rather than feeling comfortable asking for that. Now, the only time you should ever feel uncomfortable asking for money is if the value you're providing does not equal the dollar amount you're receiving. If that's the case, then you should feel uncomfortable with asking for the money, and you should feel uncomfortable with selling because you're doing a disservice to the people that you're trying to work with, right? As long as the value proposition is in favor of the buyer, you should always feel very confident and comfortable selling because it's okay. It's an exchange of value. And I think that's the main thing people need to understand and take away is the word salesman has gotten this negative, or the idea of selling has gotten this negative connotation over the years. Everybody thinks of a greasy used car salesman with coffee and cigarette breath, right?
Yeah.
Uh, that's what everybody thinks of when you think of sales, and like it does have this very negative connotation to it. But in reality, all selling is the transfer of belief, or the belief continuum. And if you truly believe what you provide is of value, you should have no problem selling it. um, there's nothing wrong with it. You have to sell it if you want to make it work, if you want to make money, if you want to provide value to people. You have to sell it. A lot of people get into business thinking that people are just going to be like, you're great at what you do, you're amazing, let me pay you. That's not the case. uh,
Again, very naive 2018 Jade here. That was me. I was like, oh, it'll be like, I'm going to have so many people that are going to be like just flocking to me. Right. And after cold DMing, or not even cold emailing is what I did. Small local businesses. I think I got one response and it was like, no, thank you. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be.
100%. I always equate sales to the duck pond game at a carnival. You know what I'm talking about at a carnival when
Or you
there's
like pick it up and flip it over.
yeah, you flip it over,
Yeah.
and if it has a number on it, it matches a prize, right? That's what selling is, because you have to sit there and you're just picking ducks, and you have no idea if it's going to equate to the big prize. But the more ducks you pick, the better odds you have of
Yep.
actually getting one number attached to a prize, and that is what selling is.
Yeah. And a lot of virtual assistants that I coach, they don't they don't understand that. And I think trying to get them to understand of, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. Yes, there are different things that you can do to be better at selling and getting that close, right? But to help increase those numbers. But my favorite's when I'm like, well, no, I haven't got a client yet. Well, how many people have you talked to? Three people. They all ghosted me. You needed to be talking to a hell of a lot more than three people. You're not even out of the three, you're not even going to get the one, right?
Yeah.
33%, a lot of people would kill for that. You have to, and that's even just getting a response, not even actual discovery calls.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality. And I break this down for people before, because same thing, right? Newer coaches in the space, or asking, they're like, well, I've talked to 10 people and I haven't gotten anything. It's like, oh, okay.
So
Does
you're done.
That's 10 people. It's a sample size. I was like, I have no data to pull off of that for you. I was like, it's not enough to know anything, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, if you talk to 100 people, 10 people might answer.
Yeah.
Right. That's nobody talks about the front end numbers. Everybody talks about the closing number, right? Of 30 to 40%, right?
Yep.
But that's not 30 to 40% of people you talk to. That's 30 to 40% of people you have in a actual sales situation. When we go on the front end of it, the numbers are much more daunting.
Online service providers, are you ready for 10K months? Over the past 5 years, I have helped 1,000 women not only start their VA businesses, but also scale to consistent 10K plus months. Whether it's OBMs, SMMs, VA agencies, myself and my team of coaches can help you dream bigger and achieve more. If you're needing a one-on-one coaching program customized to help you scale sustainably, send me a DM at Rebel Energy Coaching on Instagram saying scale. Oh, yeah. I say like envision a funnel, right? And again, pick whatever number you want at the top of that funnel. And, each layer of business or each layer, within your business, like the initial outreach, people are going to fall off during the conversation, different parts of the conversation. Then you offer a discovery call. There's going to be hopefully a very small percentage that like don't actually show up for the call that maybe end up So, at each part of the funnel, there's going to be another layer of people that just disappears. And yeah, I love seeing their face when I say that because they're just like, what the fuck did I get myself into? But also, too, the good thing, at least with VAs, I'm like, you can be fully booked out with 3 to 4 people.
Yep.
Coaching, it's a little bit different, right? But um, walk us through what your sales process is briefly, if you can kind of break it down a little bit when you're talking to someone in the DMs to actually going and landing the client.
So I think the biggest thing is everybody. So there's two people, right? There are the people that are afraid to sell, and then there's the people that try to sell everybody.
Mhm.
Um, when you need to have that happy medium, right? Because I watch it all the time. So if you're in the DMs of somebody, your thought should never be, what do I get out of this conversation?
Mhm.
Right? Your thought should always be, can I provide this individual with value through this conversation?
Yep.
Right. And if you're focused on them, I'm a big believer in everybody getting something, right? Whether I walk away from that conversation with a deal or they walk away from the conversation with some free game and value. I want everybody to have a positive interaction with me. So that way, no matter what, they may end up being a buyer eventually, right? But you look for your opening, right? Everything should be, if there's anything anyone can take away from this conversation, it's you. 90% of what you should be doing is asking questions,
Mhm.
finding out what you can actually do for them, right? What do they want? People don't buy what they need or spend on what they need, they spend on what they want,
Yep.
right? So if you have to identify their wants, right? Not their needs, like, oh, like what kind of help do you need in your, no, what do you want out of your business, right? That's what we want to find out, right? And getting people, the hardest part is getting people on calls, right? Getting somebody from DMs to a call is very difficult in the sense that people like to say no to things, right? So, you want to start doing your discovery in the DMs, right? Gaining information about them, finding out if you are even someone that can help them, but you're looking for your opening, right? You're looking for that piece of information that they expose that you're like, oh wait, hold on, this is right in my wheelhouse. This I can expand on. This person I can help. When you find that information, that's when you have to transition out of the DMs into a call, right? You don't want to sit there and like you want to get them opening a little bit on it, but you don't want to lose that momentum of the conversation. I've always found a suggestion works amazing, right? Or I have an idea. My favorite thing is I have an idea, right? I got an idea. Why don't we do this, right? And pitch getting on a call, or you know, would you be opposed to hopping on a call and discussing this more, right? You want to get them, and the reason why that second one works very well is, like I said, people love saying no, so you get an agreement through a no rather than So you get a yes through a no rather than asking them a question that they say yes to because they want to say no. So if you are appealing to what they want, which is to say no, but asking a question that gets a positive agreement, you get what you want, they get what they want, right? You both got what you wanted out of that exchange, and then you transfer them into a call from there. Once you have people on a call, again, it's right back into value for them, right? I'm very big on, I always ask people this question: are you selling or are you telling? And a lot of people like to tell. When you get on a call, it's not the time to sit there and flex your intellectual muscles about what you know and everything like that. The reality is nobody gives a shit what you know. They care how you make them feel,
Yeah.
right? So sitting there and being like, well, I do this, and I'm going to do this for you. It's like the problem is most people want to sell what they are and what they offer
Mm-hmm.
in totality, when the reality is you need to sell them on what they need, on what they need and want, right? So if they're only focused on certain aspects, I'm not going to sit there and talk about all the other aspects of things that I can do for them because it's an irrelevant factor, and I'm just clouding them with information that they're like, all right, well, I only need this, but he's talking about all this, maybe I don't need it,
Yeah.
right? And you end up talking yourself out of deals. So you want to get them in that. This is like a whole long deep conversation as far as
Oh, I
sales.
know. That's why I was like, let's do a brief. I'm
It's
like, we could get to for hours.
what you ultimately what you want is you want to get people in a pattern of saying yes. Minor agreements, right?
Yep.
Call it death by a thousand cuts. Minor agreement after minor agreement after minor agreement. So that way, when you go for the big agreement, they are in the pattern and in the repetition of saying yes. So it actually takes a mental shift for them to go and start saying no. Then, right?
Yeah, we call that, well, I don't know what you call it, but that's what I teach in like the basics of Rebel Energy Academy is the yes ladder. Get them to say yes multiple times throughout the call.
Yeah, everything, even if it's irrelevant things, or even if it's very minor things, you just want all those minor agreements. You want that pattern of yes.
Yeah, like this call is going to be 45 minutes. Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
Of course they're going to say yes to that, right? They already know because they have it blocked off on their calendar.
yeah,
They basically already agreed to it. So yeah, those minor yeses add up within that. I love that. That's like one of the I'm like, just get them to say yes as many times. And so in my again, I know we're not like big on scripts, but the outline I have them walk through. But that's where as well too. I know when we were talking a couple weeks ago, you're like, I can't teach what's that word? Like the gut instinct. And the same thing is in the DMs, right? I can have a DM script for you, but people are people. They're never going to it's never going to be that smooth, right? They're never going to answer how you want them to answer. So what happens when they give you a weird answer? What happens when maybe they're an asshole in the DMs, That's not going to be in the DM scripts. And that's where, number one, either having that one-on-one coach to be like, what the fuck do I say to this? Or, right, they have the years of expertise of the trial and error and knowing what to do.
yeah. Instinct is something that cannot be taught. It is learned through repetition.
Yeah.
100%. And me and you have had this conversation a ton, and it's it's funny because most people that teach and train sales, they were naturally gifted with sales.
Mhm.
They were someone that had to learn how to sell. They were someone that just knew how to sell. That's a very interesting thing, that it's always the natural people that end up teaching on the sales end of things. I've never been taught by a sales trainer or sales leaders. None of them were ever somebody that had to fight to figure out how to sell. They were always just someone that, and it's really tough when you have that natural ability and people don't grasp, right, where they're not understanding. And that's where actually diving in and learning how to train people and coach people comes into play. But the biggest thing, not to get off topic, but the biggest thing was scripts, right? What people need to understand about scripts is they're great as a framework,
Yes,
right?
afraid.
They're a framework. They're not a Bible, so to speak. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up with. They get a script and they're like, they didn't respond on script. How do I? It's like, okay, that's there for you to know how you can bring back the conversation.
Yeah.
It's there for you. Okay, we got off here. I can say this here, and I can loop them back into the conversation. Got it. It's a framework, right? But yeah, you still have to start developing the natural ability to, you have to move like water, right? Wherever they want to go with things. Now, the key with sales is maintaining control while allowing someone to feel in control. That's a very weird concept for most people. Is every conversation I have, the individual feels in control. But what I am doing is I am walking them on a line to that point, right? I am allowing them to do that. I am the one that's in control. I am walking them through that conversation to where they feel like they are in control. And it's a very, very weird concept, but that's how, that comes from being able to ask questions in a very, ambiguous manner, but also a very clear manner at the same time, right? Asking the right questions that are open-ended enough that get people elaborating and going down rabbit holes. But that's exactly what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
right? I walk them right to it, but they feel like they're in control. They feel like it's their conversation, but ultimately all they're doing is doing what I'm telling them to do.
Yeah. And that again, that's one thing too, after doing sales calls for 5 years, you know, when you're in the moment too, just knowing, because I think it's really easy for us to be like after the fact of like, oh, I should have gone that way. Or I kind of let my emotions take over with that one. Or, so yeah, like having that control is so, so important. Is there anything else, or one, maybe your favorite piece of advice or a quote or something that you think would be helpful to leave our listeners with?
Conviction outperforms skill every time. So you don't need to be the most skilled. And that's where people go wrong is how people go, well, I'll launch when I know, right? When I know enough, right? All that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
don't need anything in your tool belt. You just need to be confident and be able to speak with conviction, because you can be a 1 or 2 on the skill level
Hmm.
of that side of things, right? Skill level is measured 1 through 10. Conviction is on a scale of 1 to 100. You can be a level 2 on skill, but 100 conviction, and you'll have a higher closing rate.
Yeah. That makes sense, right? Like having that confidence, and yes, I can do this. I can give them X, Y, and Z, or I have this value to give to them. I love all that. Thank you so much for JT.
I will give you my quote though.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
My quote, though. Um, the individual that loves walking will walk further than the person who loves the destination. It's process over product 100% of the time. Fall in love with the process of what you do,
Yeah.
and you will win in the end, because you'll keep going when times get hard. You'll keep going after getting all those no's. You'll keep going because you love the process. The end result, cool. It's a
Yeah.
fleeting thing. But the process, falling in love with the process and loving being in the middle of that, that's what carries you through hard times.
I love that. I had to think that one through a little bit. I haven't had that much coffee yet. I was like, wait, but I love that so much. And it's so, so true, because I see way too many, even women that I'm talking to, it's like, well, when am I going to get to my 5K months? If you're not enjoying what you're doing, right? If you're just in it for the money, and I think a lot of times it's people want the outcome, right? They want the money, they want the big income month, or feel important and be able to like bring on a team member, but they're not actually enjoying everything that goes into it. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, JT, for your time today. I appreciate it. I know it's going to help our listeners so, so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.